Again, we've talked about every month that during the hunting season, your biggest fails that you can as a deer hunter. And brings us to December. December is an interesting month because there's a lot of people not even hunting. Now down south, the rut's just picking up in areas and getting going. But nothing says December like a pickup truck with a Christmas tree in the back of it. So not that you guys care what coffee mug I have, but we usually have coffee in here. And this definitely means December. I like decorating for Christmas early. I like early Christmas trees, early Christmas lights. Our lights are already on the house. So I hope you guys are in that festive mood too. But during that festive mood, I guess we're going to talk about failure and December deer fails, because you get to this time of year, it's a disheartening time. It's time of excitement. We shoot a lot of bucks in December. And so I get this time of year and I can't wait to get out in the woods and hunt. And I hope that's the same for you too. I still have tags. We hunt Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's why I like living here, right across the street, right across the river from each other, where we can go hunt one property morning, flip to the other one in the afternoon. So it just depends on what we're seeing. I'm after one good buck in each property right now. The big 8-point, he's one that I wounded 2 years ago during a season of mishaps and dumb mistakes. And then I'm after Bo here in Minnesota. Kind of a cat and mouse game with Bo. Dylan and I are going to go sit for Bo tonight in a blind we call Gold Rush. But not because we found gold there. I don't want you on my property looking for gold, but we were tried to anchor a blind down and kept running into rock. And Jen came back. We had about 10 holes there. Dante and I were trying to auger it down. We had about 10 holes in the dirt, and she's like, "That looks like Gold Rush." They're digging so much. So that's how these goofy names come about. Going in December, how many of you discouraged out there? And we'll talk about that. How many you can't wait? We'll talk about that. We're going to flip down to the number one fail, down here at number 5. So you could skip through to like minute number 12 right now, or wherever we go to, and look at that. But bottom line is, I think it's important to go through these first ones, and the first one is giving up. There's a lot of times people right now, we go to a lot of clients where you get a diminishing return every day of the season. Best sit is on October 1st in Michigan. October 15th, you're hoping. And then all of a sudden you're going through October thinking, well, at least there's a rut. And then you have a rut, you see a couple big bucks come through here and there in your trail cameras, and then it's over, and then you get into gun season. I'm using Michigan as an example, but this can apply to every state. November 15th, opening day of gun. You might see a few deer. You might be in a good spot where you see a lot of deer, and then all of a sudden the second day, nothing. I remember opening day in gun season about 95, 96, where we saw a combined 50, 60 deer on opening day, and the next day we saw one button buck. They all went to safer pastures. Go throughout the rest of November, hardly seen a deer. December, you don't see anything. And people give up. And I think there's ways that we can talk about not giving up here. But I hope that's not you, because, and it might be just that you don't have enough time. You hunt a few days in October, November, you take your vacation days, your weekends, and then you're on to something else. I have a lot of friends that are in bowling leagues, for example. And so during the week, couple nights a week, they're bowling. And they spend more weekends with family. They don't really have much time for hunting. But regardless, it's unfortunate if you're giving up, and we'll talk about that. Maybe ways you shouldn't be giving up. Number 2, this is a cause of giving up. That leads to giving up is going all in. And so you have this failure of going into December, and I need to go sit in my bedding area. There's got to be bucks back there. There's got to be sign. I want to see what's in there, and you go in there all for naught again. Meaning that you've already done this in early November, mid-November, end of November. Now it's December and you're doing it. And this is why we go to client properties. Now, when we go to a client property, these are not, typically, they're not dumb hunters. They're not just passive hunters. These are people that bought land specifically to deer hunt. And they are passionate enough about it that they're hiring us. Dylan's fee this year is $29.50. That's the same with Joe and Kevin. They've all been to dozens of properties. Dylan's been to the most, and then mine's $37.50, and that's for a day. That's what we charge. My schedule is almost full for 2023. Joe's is most of the way full. Kevin's just starting to schedule right now, and Dylan, when he's wanted to schedule, he fills, and he's got a lot of other things on his plate, including editing, camera work, videography, photography.
And hunting.
Did a little hunting this year. That's why he's not scheduling right now. I'd say it's more hunting right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's he's telling me he's staying home for a little bit, you know, a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and call me. I might be around and come over and film a day or two. And really, I have that South Dakota tag. I'm thinking about going back to South Dakota next week. So that's this morning. But anyways, we go to a lot of client properties, and these are passionate people that spend a lot of money and spend a lot of days and devote a lot of time to hunting. So they're the above average hunter as far as passion and really committing the resources to hunting. And they'll say, you know, they see last year, the end of November, last year in December, last year in January. And then we're out there in February and March, and there's sign everywhere. It happens all the time. It's the first time they've let their property settle for a couple weeks, and they haven't gone in there, let alone 3 or 4 weeks. And it's crazy how the deer come back, especially if you have good habitat, which is what I encourage you either build or hunt anyways, whether it's on public land, you're finding it, or on private land, you build it. So going all in. People say, all in again, all in again. I'm going to sit in a bedding area stand. A lot of clients say, what about that bedding area stand for that one sit where I'm going to go sit right in the middle of the 40 acres or 80 acres and hunt? They'll say, what about, can I keep that? Well, I don't want them to, because you know what? They're going to use it if they have it. And that's a bad thing, because you sit there one time and the ramifications of that sit can have weeks of an effect. Let alone if you're going all in every 2 weeks. Then your property never heals. The deer remove themselves from the property, or at least during the daylight. And especially if the does and fawns are not hitting your food sources on your own land and private land or on public land until after dark, then those mature bucks probably won't even give it a sniff during the dark, let alone during the daylight. They are much less tolerant of hunting pressure than doe family groups, and don't let anyone tell you different. But going all in again, big mistake in December, big mistake. Being dumb. What's that mean? We all do dumb things. I've done a few dumb things this year that led to not getting a deer or a buck I was after. I do that every year. I think we're all dumb to some extent. That's why we always can learn and always keep learning no matter how much experience we have. Maybe you choose to, I'm just going to drive the ATV in. It's flat land, but it's easier. I'll just drive the ATV in. Maybe you just start using rattling antlers, decoys. You throw all caution to the wind. You don't care about where your scent's at. You don't care about scent management when you're on the stand, where your scent's blowing. I'm just going to go hunt that stand no matter what way the wind's blowing. And it's kind of like going all in. You know, you can go all in and just sit in the middle of your property, but you can go all in and just throw all caution to the wind in every way that you shouldn't. Always think about when you're being dumb. And I think about this a lot. What would I do different right now in this circumstance, walking in, getting into a stand, getting out if the deer had gone? I know it's a very extreme way to look at it, but the ramifications are still the same as far as the deer, you know you're there. And so really think about, how can I hunt more like a predator? And December is not the time to give up that. In fact, it's a time to do the opposite, because as December rolls on, there's more opportunity to capture a bigger portion of the herd. There's more opportunity to see the second rut. There's more opportunity to see more deer, because deer go to locations where we'll talk about number 5, where there's been a lot of removal of hunting pressure, not addition. And in most areas of the woods, most neighborhoods, most areas of public land, there's been a lot of hunting pressure added. So those areas that aren't pressured by hunters are few and far between. You can easily build it on 40 acres, even if your neighbors are not doing the same. I don't like the excuse when people say, well, once the Orange Army is out, what are you supposed to do? Well, manage your property well, even if it's 40 acres, and the Orange Army will do more help for you than harm. Number 4, not changing. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always had. People hunt the same spot in the same portion of their private land or public land that they go to over and over and over again, because they have good memories there, good ties. That's why I think it helps when we go out to a client property, because we have a very short memory. We don't remember when Uncle Mo shot the giant 8-pointer 15 years ago on a particular stand where that giant 8-pointer had no business going by, except he was pushed up by the neighbors, or he was cruising a random doe. Wasn't a good spot. But now, because the biggest buck on the land was shot in that location, public or private land, you keep hitting it and pounding it to death over and over again. There's a lot of stands where I've shot my biggest buck ever and then not hunted that stand the following year, because the winds didn't come up, the sign didn't come up in that area. So I didn't want to hunt there. I want to have some confidence going into a stand. How much of a story does your stand location paint? If it paints a very short story, you know, Uncle Mo shot that giant buck when he went by 15 years ago. Why? Give me 4 or 5 reasons why that buck was there, and then it might be a good stand to hunt. And you have to relate that stand to the particular month that you're hunting in. And that leads to number 5. You might not change stand. You know, number 4, find a new spot on public land. Go out and look for sign. You know, the cool thing about right now is sign really sticks out, because deer, when they're moving around December, they really herd up. And if you have a big doe herd somewhere, likely you have a buck hanging around somewhere, especially for that second rut sometime in December in your area. Maybe your first rut down south somewhere. But bottom line is, look for another spot on public land. It might do you some good. You know, you're worn down, kind of bummed out about the season, and now all of a sudden you're taking a 2-mile hike out on public land and you're looking for a new spot and you find some new sign, and it re-energizes you. That's a good thing. Could re-energize your mind, soul, body, just going for a hike, and then you find this sign and hey, you're right back in it. I had a couple days of vacation to burn. Maybe I will use it and go hunting. That's a good thing. And that leads to number 5. When you're not finding in December spots to hunt that have unpressured food and cover. Because if you can find that, if you can find unpressured food and cover, then you can find a great deer herd, you can find a great hunt. And on your private land, that means right now, Dylan and I are toying with where tonight we have a spot we can sit for an evening stand that is fairly low invasive. I'd give it a 2.5, 3 out of 10 as far as being invasive. But if we go over there and hunt, we can also hunt a 0 out of 10, meaning we can get in and out without ever spooking deer. Without every spooking deer. When the rut's in, we watch a pile of does, pile meaning 8, 10, 12, and a couple bucks when there's a big one around. And when one of those fawns comes into heat, he's there. And we've shot a big buck there every year since 2014, and sometimes 2. So the point is that we can go into this a little bit more invasive spot, but that can potentially, even though a low percentage of the time, disrupt that more guaranteed evening spot. Guaranteed evening spot when we have cool weather, cold weather, when the weather's changing, great time to sit, which is coming up on Thursday or Wednesday. So do I go in there on Wednesday, Thursday to a 10 out of 10 opportunity? Or do I risk it a little bit tonight on a more marginal hunt cast day and risk it? So we're going to go in probably here in Minnesota. We'll hunt muzzleloader either way. But I use muzzleloader for all seasons: gun, rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader. The bottom line is we're looking around for that spot where there's consistent amount of deer hitting a food source. We know they're probably bedding here. We know they're feeding here, and then we can set up that hunt assemblage if we want to hunt them here in the morning. That particular spot we're talking about over in Wisconsin, it's a less invasive hunting in the morning because we're getting back closer to bedding area. And so when we get in and out, when we get out in the afternoon, it's a lot easier because we know that 11 o'clock there's not going to be any deer on our way getting out. When we're going in, they're out in neighboring food sources, sometimes a mile away. So we're getting in at a really good time in the morning and then waiting for things to pick up. A lot of times not till hour and a half, 2 hours after daylight, hour at least. So a little bit safer hunt in the morning. So think about that. But we have that whole assemblage. We know they're feeding here, they're bedding here, and you can easily tell that by sign, tracks, new rubs, scrapes, trail cam photos, whatever you use. You can easily tell that this time of year. And if you're changing, if you're not throwing all caution to the wind, you're still chipping away, don't give up on your game plan, in the fourth quarter. If you watch football, I watch a lot. I love college football. Pros are okay. I'm a delusional, let's put that. I'm a delusional Lions fan. I always have been. I always think they're going to win the Super Bowl every year. You always get hope, and then hope gets ruined. Actually, I've been happy with their season this year. I think they're doing pretty well. But bottom line is, you watch some of these games, and you watch a solid game plan that works during the first half. It's working into part of the third quarter. All of a sudden, the wheels come off, and things change up. Mistakes happen, and you just blow the fourth quarter. Now, a lead that was pretty close. I'm thinking Michigan, Ohio State on Saturday. Go Blue. They won. That was big. They hadn't won in Columbus in 22 years, so it's okay to gloat a little bit, right? But bottom line is, it was 2023 sometime in the third quarter, and then the wheels fell off and ended up a blowout. And Ohio State just completely lost their game in that fourth quarter. We do that as hunters a lot. We really do. But if you find a really good game plan in December, and that's going to involve unpressured food and cover because there's not a lot going around at that time. And even look at it like even just not talking about the pressure. There's not a lot of great places with good food and cover. Good December food and cover, which is also good November food and cover. And that's why a lot of properties and areas that people hunt that are good in early October are not good in December. Because once the leaves come off, once the food goes away, I'll think beans out in ag fields that are picked and clean. Corn that has been picked and clean. Alfalfa that is stemmy, yellow, dormant. People hunting along ag fields. Dylan brought up that today. We talk about world's dumbest hunter, which is me sometimes. But bottom line is, people hunting over big ag fields that looked really pretty in early October. That's not the same in early December. Deer devoid. They're back in thick cover, high stem count cover, looking for browse, and they're still hitting quality food where they can find it. And those mature bucks are willing to travel many times further than a doe family group to find that food. So when you find it, you have a great December. But when you hold on to what you've always done for October, November, you're probably going to have a bad hunt. But it's the same strategy all season long. You're looking for unpressured quality food and quality cover. Not the difference is on private land, you can build your property so you have it the entire season. Public land, you need to go find it and change your strategy because food sources are changing every 4 or 5 weeks. So you need to go find it. So I hope you guys can avoid this #1 deer fail of December, but you have to go find that food and cover. You have to change, go find it. Don't throw all caution to the wind, and you could have a great December hunt this year and beyond. I urge everyone out there to really check out my web classes. They've been wildly successful. We have one that details how you should design your land, another one that details how you should plant and maintain and manage a food plot program. How can you make those decisions that fit your land specifically and not someone else's? Unfortunately, there's so much information in the hunting industry that says you should do this, but it doesn't apply to you. These web classes directly apply to you. And then we have our third web class that came out last year, our rut web class, navigating the entire rut. And then we have our fourth one coming out, which is hunting hills and thermals. I urge you to check those out, try the web classes, and they're all about teaching, helping you understand how you can navigate, not only managing your property, food plots, and the rut, but also hunting strategically, hills, thermals, and wherever you pursue whitetails for your dream and your passion.